Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Sheared podcast. I'm your host, Austin Creed, and today, my friends, we're going to be talking about a subject that I can guarantee you will probably disagree with me on. Equality. And I understand immediately, right out the gate, when you hear certain words, your brain immediately jumps to a certain place. And today I really want to explore this concept, and not so that you can accept it blindly, but so that hopefully and ideally you can have this internal dialogue and you can discuss, wait a minute, maybe he has a point, maybe he's completely off base, but at least I am going to think about it. And my friends, I want to assert to you the following statement: that men and women have always been equal. And what I mean by that is not what you have been led to believe. You've been led to believe that the idea of equality stems from the idea that you have to be equally able to do everything or equal access to everything, when in fact, this, in my opinion, is a complete mythology. The reason is because the world turns around power. Money is just one avenue to power. Then you have politics as another, and there's this third area that people often are afraid to mention. And it's funny to me, but not surprising, that this third rail of power is sex. Now, my friends, here's what I really want to assert to you today. We're going to come at this from our own biases. I come at this from the masculine perspective. There are women who are going to come at this, and unfortunately some men, from the feminine side of it. And there's no one right or wrong way to see this topic. However, we have been fed a narrative that is one-sided and lacks dimension. And in my estimation and in my interpretation, reality and truth are many things, but simple is not one of them. And so in our attempt to be truthful and authentic, we should also seek this idea to see it from as many perspectives as possible. And today we're going to attempt to do that. And so when I say this provocative statement that men and women have always been equal, we need to define some terms, because we need to make sure we're talking about the same thing, that we have the same definition, so that we can have the same conversation. When I use the term equality, a lot of people have the definition of the socialist/communist idea of equality, which was pushed by the Soviet Union, pushed by a lot of socialist countries, and stems from the Communist Manifesto, Frederick Engels, Karl Marx, Vladimir Lenin, Joseph Stalin, all these men, okay? You may not realize this, but unfortunately, that is true. And it also stems, when I say it stems from Marx and Engels, what I mean is they were the ones who popularized this idea, which was foreign, as far as my reading of history, until Marx and Engels popularized the idea of the bourgeoisie and the proletariat. So when we talk about the bourgeoisie was the top of society, the privileged people, the people with the power, the influence, and the money, and then we had the bourgeoisie and the proletariat were the working class, the people who were being oppressed by the bourgeoisie. And they compared the typical monogamous relationship at the time, which is just one avenue of relationships. But they said that the man was the bourgeoisie and the woman was the proletariat. In other words, they popularized this notion, which is very prevalent across the entire West, that the man is inherently the oppressor to the woman, who is inherently the victim. And while you might be quick to dismiss or accept that notion, we need to realize that this is not a simple topic to discuss. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I know everything. However, what I will tell you is I'm one of the few who is brave enough to ask questions that may make you uncomfortable, but will lead you to hopefully leading a better, more informed, more enlightened life with the truth. Truth and history are not simple concepts and do not have simple explanations. However, when I say that men and women have always been equal, what I mean is they have always contributed equally to the existence of the human race, number one. And number two, we often dismiss a very real fact, and that is this: women are born with power over men. I'll repeat that in case you missed it. Women are born with power over men. You might say, Austin, what is this magical power you speak of? Well, it's not that magical. I mean, it can feel like it in the moment, but it is sexual intimacy. This is the aspect of power that women are born with. You know, it shocks me, and I can't believe that we still have to have this conversation. But there are still critics who say that it is a double standard for a man to be praised for having multiple experiences with versus women are penalized, when you realize that it is not a level playing field. It is not. There is no equivalency to be made. Reason being, for women, sex is the easiest thing they can ever do. All they gotta do is lay on their back or on all fours and let the dude do all the work. That is literally all they have to do. Men, we have to overcome the invisibility of the 80%, go into the top 20% category of males, then we have to bring something to society. We have power, status, money. We have to bring something, be something. We can't just show up. We can't just take what we want, because then you go to jail, as you should. Women, on the other hand, for a woman to get sex, all she has to do is ask the first guy she comes across, and by the time she's done with that offer, the dude is probably already ready to go. Whereas with a man, if you do that, you're going to jail, or at very least, a very uncomfortable conversation with a cop. Do I need to keep going to explain to you what we're talking about? Why I say that men and women have always been equal. They have had equal power over the other, except one has been very overt and the other has been very covert. Women have shaped history forever. Now, just because they're not written about in books does not mean, well, not all books, some, but not all, does not mean that they were not present. After all, isn't it not the women who raise the children, who half of which tend to be male? Are we also going to ignore the fact that 80% of women have procreated over the course of human history, whereas only about 20 to 25% of men have procreated? I know that sounds like a really low number. You don't think it's true, but you realize how much war used to be way more, disease used to take way more people off the planet. My friends, this is a very complicated discussion, and I know you're going to get mad, but I would encourage you not to just react, positively or negatively. You need to realize that women work covertly, behind the scenes, because they're not as physically strong as men. So therefore they work in the shadows versus the men work in the sunshine. Sorry. Men work in the sunshine and women work in the shadows. Now, that's why women have shaped society and religion and politics from the shadows. Sometimes in the sunlight, like in higher class Japanese society during the Tokugawa period. However, we need to understand that women have always held power over men. And of course, they're willing to not tell you this, because then, see, part of the reason why women have to lie, quote unquote lie, is because most men cannot handle the truth. I guarantee you, the people who are going to be most offended if they watch this or listen to this are going to be weak men and feminist women. It's funny, whenever I talk about this topic, it is the men who get mad at me. Last time I talked about this topic, it was the women who said nothing. And it was the men who got in their feelings, they got mad, they got hostile towards me. Now, I don't care if you're hostile towards me. If if anything, that proves that I am correct because you got mad. But I won't go there. I'm not here just to irritate you. I'm here to give you some food for thought. I could sit here and just spit talking points on one side or the other, but that's boring and it's been done. Instead, I want to assert that women and men have always been equal. The problem is we've been looking with the sunlight and not looking at the shadows. Women have never been powerless. Never. Even in the most patriarchal societies on earth, men couldn't just take from women like that. They couldn't do it because other men would hold them accountable. Other men would protect them from that. Whereas, who was there to protect them from the manipulation of the woman? Now, I know it's a very, very provocative statement. But guess what? A real question. Who was there to protect them from the enemy that was sleeping next to them? Who was there to protect them from the enemy within the city gates? Now, I'm not saying that all women are bad or that all men are good. I'm saying you need to see this from a different perspective. Women have always had influence and power. It's just not been completely in your face and overt. They have shaped society. Just look at natural selection. Look at the height of men over the course of the last 100 years. Look at how men have gotten taller, smarter. Do you think that is by accident? The answer is no. The strong men procreated and the weak men did not. Partially because the strong men didn't let them, and partially because the women had no interest in them. The reason you wouldn't expect that men and women have always been equal is because you've been told the opposite. But if you actually jumped into the history books, you actually looked at the gender dynamics and seen that women have always and will always hold power. It is basic supply and demand. They hold a monopoly over one of the few things in life that men are hardwired to have. So therefore, they have power and negotiating power in the sexual, dating, marriage marketplace. See how this is starting to make a little sense here? I know that this is probably going to sound a little like this.
Business. Numbers. Business working. Yes. Yeah!
I get that. However, whether you vehemently disagree or wholeheartedly agree, I encourage you to explore this topic because it is not something that is popular to discuss. Now, I'm not justifying any actions, and I'm not denying any potential bad fall. There are positives and negatives to everything, whether it be matriarchy, patriarchy, oligarchy, monarchy. There are negatives, democracy. There are downsides and upsides to everything. There is no perfect social order or political order in this life. My question to you is, are you going to think for yourself? Are you going to ponder what I've presented to you? Or are you immediately going to deny it, say it's not true, it can't be true, I don't want it to be true? Or are you going to go into depth? You're going to look at it. You're going to maybe put yourself in a position where you don't like the answers that you find, but it makes you more well-rounded and it makes you have to contemplate the human condition more than you immediately thought. Because simplicity is rarely the right course of action when it comes to explaining the complicated world we live in. I hope that you choose to explore this dynamic and indulge me, because I'm not saying this for shock value. I firmly believe this. It also depends on how you come at this. I define equality as you bring something equally of value and have equal negotiating power. The problem is we see this all too often from the masculine perspective, and then women are all too happy to have plausible deniability and to take everything they can get, which is human nature, and there's nothing inherently wrong with that. But most people, especially women, require leadership. You ever asked a woman where she wants to eat? That is hard enough alone, much less anything else. My friends, I want you to really explore this, and I want you to ask yourself this hard question. Have men and women always been equal? In my opinion, they have. And we'll continue to explore this topic, but I really wanted to present this to you. My friends, I encourage you to question everything you heard, stay informed and vigilant, because the truth is never simple, and history is complicated. Take care of yourselves. I guarantee you had a reaction to this, but I hope you learned something valuable and took something and that you can make yourself a better human being because of this question. I'm out. Peace.